Lori from Purposely Unplugged. It's the November show, part 2 of our work-life balance. And just before we went on the air, you gave me this great quote. Would you mind just repeating it? Because I've got this head cold and I didn't really catch it all. I'm not going to lie to you.
Sure. We actually mentioned it last week or last session too. Work-life balance is really about the minimization of work-related stress and the establishment of sustainable way of life that supports health and well-being.
Yeah, and just to recap, folks, we got into that work aspect of it, all the sort of effects that can come with work, because at the start of the last show, I told Lori, basically, I just assumed work-life balance meant more time off, and Lori corrected me on all that. And now we're looking at what the balance part is. So it's critical. We had to break this down because I was getting off track and asking way too many questions last month. So let's get this balance part working here.
Right.
How do you find balance? Where do you start then?
Yeah. Well, the best thing, Dave, is if we have a job where we can actually end our day. Now, self-employed folks like myself, that's not so easy. But if you have a corporate or regular paid position where you can actually end your day and have a ritual, like it's done, maybe even shut off the work phone, definitely don't check email, close the laptop, or if you're driving home, just make that commute definitely something where your brain body knows we're finished work. We're moving toward the rest of our day. That's the best thing if someone can do that.
And it's hard because I think many times I've did it and it's taken me a lot of years. And you and I talked about this last time, is the phone will ring and I'll pick it up. You don't have to, it can wait till tomorrow, but you're like, oh, I should probably take this call. And I think that you always get lured back in, and it's what you said there is just turn it off, walk away. Mm-hmm. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it is important to appreciate yourself in that moment, right?
Absolutely. That almost speaks to a video I watched. It was Brian Tracy and his dad, and It was life-changing rules for work-life balance. And that's one of the things he said: self-care, set boundaries. One of the best things I heard in that YouTube, though, was digital detox.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Again, shut off the phones.
It goes back to what you do, right? Like you have to walk away at some point because it can be mind numbing. And, in that aspect of it with work too. And I think I've gotten to the point where on the weekends, I'll check the emails in the morning. That's it. Mm-hmm. And I'm gone for the day. I don't need the screen time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's the other part of it. Just your physical health too. Right.
Yeah. Well, I remember leaving a job once. I ended that work with that location, and I used to be on call quite regularly. And my son, we were leaving the house on a Saturday morning. He's like, "Mom, you don't have your cell phone." I'm like, "I don't have that job anymore. I don't need the cell phone." So even the people in our lives are trained to think this way. And it's like, no, I can turn off now. I can relax now.
So let's talk about what does the balance look and feel like? Like, how do you know you got it right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's different for everyone, but definitely taking regular breaks. So even at work during the day, take 10-minute breaks. Take time for yourself. Once you've ended your day, think about a routine that's good for you. I really like a website I found. It's UC Davis Medical Center. This is out of Sacramento, but they have an article that says 3 ways to get outside can help you. That article is fabulous, and I know it's from an American citation, but it talks about going outside, breathing, just kind of earthing and spending those few minutes to yourself. And then the last thing I'd suggest is there's lots around mindfulness. There are mindfulness apps that you can just download on your phone, and they are fabulous.
And I think for people to do that, like you said, you've got your work relationship with your bosses and the folks that you work with, and within that time frame, like you said, most jobs you have your breaks, and you see a lot of people that just head to the coffee room, or you know what I mean, or don't go outside. That's one of the things that years ago both Monica and myself learned was when she goes at her work, she literally goes for walks on her lunch. She said it just clears everything, gets me going again, gets me started again. You know what I mean? We just don't seem to get or appreciate what that does for us, do we?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. It can be as little as 5 minutes. So even if it's a short break, it's just going outside as little as 5 minutes. If you have a full hour, I used to go to the gym on my
Yeah.
lunch. That was fabulous. But it really depends what your workday looks like. So this 5 minutes, let's talk about that because that's what we started talking about last week. Polyvagal system,
Oh, yes.
calming your polyvagal
Yeah.
nerve. And you can Google parasympathetic
Yep.
nervous system, and you'll find lots of ways that can just help you calm. But being outside, breathing, exercise are the top three that you should consider.
And when you are in a workspace that maybe you can't leave, like, by the time you get to the bottom floor, and that's where the mindfulness can come in too, right? Just closing those eyes and just allowing yourself those breaths, right?
Mhm. Now, if you like it, there are guided meditations that you could listen to, even if you are trapped at your desk. The best person I like for that is Tara Brach, Brach, Tara
Okay.
Brach. Fabulous meditations, and they're all guided. The other thing you can do is just visualization. If someone can close their eyes and visual an ice cream cone or visualize an animal, then you can visualize. And if you can do that, then you can just spend some time in a happy memory, a happy thought, someplace you've been. That will release oxytocin in the brain and again help you to calm.
Is there anything like you, so let's say you establish the balance. You've got, your day and how it's going to roll out, and you're repeating. What happens when work changes though? So all of a sudden work never stays the same. It's always, the balance is always shifting. So how do people cope with that?
Mhm. Well, unfortunately, we all experience change. We all experience frustrations, setbacks. That's just a normal part of life. That might be in our home life, that might be in our professional life. It can be either. But truly, just being able to be resilient and being able to kind of stay calm and see the benefits. I mean, some of the best things we learn are from the mistakes we make.
Yep.
So, in a challenge, there is sometimes that opportunity for just really good learning, development, growth, all around resilience.
And I think, I don't know if this is an aspect we can add, but just talking to somebody else,
Mhm,
right, outside of work. I mean, I think a lot of people, the water cooler, you know what I mean? They stay sort of insulated in that group. And
mhm,
sometimes, I think every time, you should
mhm,
be outside of that and have a life as well. And I think sometimes we get so pulled into our work, right? We can't break that.
mhm,
And that's all the people we tend to know is who we
mhm.
work with. So I'm asking you, is that something that people should look to discover?
Absolutely. And if it becomes toxic, if it becomes too much, then you need to build strategies just for self care. So that's a fabulous bridge to Kristen Neff, Neff. Kristen Neff
Okay.
talks about self compassion, self care, and that truly self compassion is the best thing we can do for ourselves. One of the books behind me is her workbook around self compassion. That's definitely something to look at if you're feeling your work is getting toxic so that you can take care of you.
What is self-compassion? Like, you know, make it relatable to me. Like, what it, like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Well, she actually has a self compassion scale. You can do it online. So it's giving you scenarios. Are there times where you are more critical of your own behavior than of someone else's? Are there times where you can't shut off from work and you worry about things or mistakes or decisions you've made? Can you truly relax and calm on the hours when you're not in the workplace? Those kinds of things are built into her self compassion scale, which just helps you to determine where you're at.
Wow, I didn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought. Like when you said that, I wouldn't have thought that, to be honest with you. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now that you say it, right? You're like, oh, um, is this something that you help folks with?
Oh, absolutely. So the biggest reason I would talk about this is because people are very concerned that they're not doing well enough at work. I'm just not catching up. I'm not succeeding well. I'm worried my boss is judging. I'm worried about all these things. And when I looked at that, there's an article by Elia Cook Campbell, and it's called Better Up, meaning most of us are very worried in the corporate world that we are not meeting the standards of our supervisors, bosses, CEOs, and that causes a great deal of stress to the point where there's articles being written about this. The
Huh.
folks that I see, often that's what I hear. I'm worried I'm just not doing good enough. I'm worried, my job has changed and I'm just worried it's too much. There's lots of these things that come up when I talk with folks.
Wow. You know what? I didn't even. I guess being independent all these years, I didn't even think of that.
Mhm.
I didn't even cross my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would be more concerned about how can I take tomorrow off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to find a way to get tomorrow off so I can do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the other part too, because you got two different dynamics working there. You got the management or the owner, and then you got the workers. So you're right. The mix has to work properly for everybody to be satisfied. But at the same time, if you're an employee, you've always got that doubt, right? Unless you have a really secure job, I guess. But
Mm-hmm. Well, and that seems to be growing and growing. So if I look at even in the 4 or 5 years I've been doing what I'm doing, I hear that more today than I would have heard 4 or 5 years ago.
really,
Mm-hmm.
wow. And yeah, I guess with the changing economy, the pandemic, right? All those things changed how we work and where we work and, our days work. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't think about that in that aspect in AI. So there's lots of things that are influencing folks with their
Mm-hmm.
jobs and what's going to happen to them in the future. How do people get a hold of you?
Phone is always best, 226-934-7425. My email is Lori@purposefullyunplugged.com.
And we just went through this whole thing, and I never even said what you do. Tell the folks.
I am a psychotherapist. So I work with all kinds of folks, young students, kind of with the stress of school, getting through that, some married couples, older folks. I really have the benefit of working with almost anyone. And I specialize as well in trauma. So lots of times I have clients who've seen someone else, but my modality is a little bit different. So we can work through trauma in a different way.
And that's when we didn't talk about with work-life balance as students,
Mhm.
because there's all that pressure,
Mhm.
right? And younger folks tend to maybe do partying or something to relieve that stress. I get that, but I mean, that's another area that we might want to look at down the road because it's a different dynamic again, right?
A very different dynamic. And when I'm talking to some adults, they can recall all the way back to grade 4, grade 5. We're
Really?
not talking about partying in college, Dave.
Wow.
It's all the way back
Why?
sometimes if we go to an early memory of elementary school.
You mean sort of setting that work agenda?
Stress. Yes, I have to
Stress,
achieve. I have to do better. I'm
right?
not the best in the class. Someone else got 97 and I got 94. So that is
They
honestly,
give marks that high?
yeah.
Not a problem I had, folks.
So in all honesty, Dave, I work with a range of folks and we kind of work through traumas related through all of the lifespan.
It's really cool. Talk to Lori, folks, and she'll help you out with all these things that we talk about every month on our show. The work-life balance too. I'm glad we did two parts because it really needed that to sort of segue through a little bit because it's hard to figure out. It really is.
It
That's why they
is.
call you.
Excellent. Have a good day, Dave.
Yes, Lori. Thank you, Lori, for taking the time today, and I appreciate it. And I'm all done work for the day, so see you later.
Bye.